Hello, Mary.
Hello.
And welcome here
you.
to Denmark. We are very proud to have an interview with you here from Exopolitics Denmark. And my name is Mette, and I'm with Exopolitics.
It's a pleasure, Mette. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to hear a little bit about your own background and what got you into this field.
Well, my background is nursing midwifery, but I went into counselling about 30 years ago, and it was, everything in counselling you get, except for I'd never come across anyone until about 18 or 19 years ago who walked in my door and said, Mary, there are no support groups for this they just think you're a loony, and told me about he was having experiences with his family and going up on craft, ending up with shaved areas on his leg, and saying, that the relatives are afraid to come to the house because they think it's demons, and can you help? And that really is the start of my journey in this whole phenomena, because he certainly was the beginning, but certainly not the last. And since that time, I've worked with nearly 3,000 individuals, or just over 3,000 individuals or families with this experience.
Yes. And did you have any personal feelings towards going into this subject at that time? Did you have any hesitation about it, or did it feel very natural to you at that time?
I think the hesitation professionally is when you step out of the normal psychological model and the judgment perhaps of your peers. For me, I was doing advanced counselling at the time, and I took the very brave step, when I look back, of actually presenting this as a case, not knowing whether my supervision group were going to think this gentleman was hallucinating or fantasy prone, or all of those things that you could have said about him. What was interesting when I presented the case, and I said, and he thinks he's been taken by aliens, and he's very credible, he's very articulate, his whole family are having experiences which for me said it wasn't just a personal hallucination, therefore it was valid. What was interesting was they started to talk about their own strange experiences and how they'd lived in haunted houses and whatever. So it almost opened the door for my colleagues to say, you know what, we've had strange experiences too. And that was really when I decided, well, in that case, it's about time I looked into this, because I've done all the other range of human experiences, but I hadn't come across this before, and this is interesting. I want to know more.
Yes. And of course, I understand why you got interested. Could you describe the research you're doing? What type of research, or what do you put emphasis on in your research?
Being working in a therapeutic way, my main goal with helping anyone with an experience, whether it's the everyday human experience or if it's a multidimensional experience in terms of encounters, the main thing is if someone comes to me and they want to tell me their story, for me, the most important thing is I listen. And I don't judge their story, so that they can tell it however they understand it. And that is the most important thing. After that, how can I help? What is it that you need? And sometimes they just need to tell their story because nobody's ever felt safe enough. Maybe they've not felt safe enough to talk about it to their family, or friends. And I might be the very first person that they've ever told this to. And the relief in that is huge. And often that's sometimes all they want. But some, if they've had missing time, or they've had other experiences, anomalous experiences, strange paranormal experiences, they may want to understand it on a deeper level. And then my research will go into maybe looking at it from working with hypnosis or other ways of helping them understand it, whether it's through information or in whatever way they will find helpful.
What do these contactees or abductees usually tell you?
Well, first,
Patterns?
Well, contactees, abductees, experiencers, as many names given, to these individuals. The first thing is that they may feel they're going crazy. So the phone call might first be, I don't know how to tell you this, you'll probably think I'm crazy. And then I will say, well, would you like to tell me about it? And then we'll I let them start. And as they start to share their story, then obviously it becomes very clear very quickly to me whether or not they fit in the patterns of either having a contactee type experience, or where they see themselves as being abducted, or where they see themselves as, experiencers, or, some call themselves star seeds or whatever. What I do primarily is send them a questionnaire, and I say, have a look at the questionnaire. If any of that makes any sense to you, or you feel that fits for you, then get back to me and we'll talk about the things that you feel are significant. And from that, then they'll start to say maybe a little bit more about their experiences. And from that, we can put a picture together, and I can send them information where they can validate their experiences. And then I'll say to them, what is it you most need now? How can I help? And they may just want to talk to somebody else who's had experiences. So I have a buddy program where they can actually start to talk to others that have had experiences, or they may ask for more information that will help them understand from another level. Because the difficult thing for most people is, because it's denied as a reality, how do they give it tangibility? How do they get to accept it's real? And the main reason, a way to do that, is give them information, and they can start searching for themselves and hearing other stories, or reading a few books on it and whatever, and then they can get a better picture of where that fits in their lives and how they choose to understand it.
Yes. Do you have any specific case that has made a huge impression on you personally, or something that affected you personally?
I think a lot of the cases affect me personally, because every time I'm exposed to a more part of their experience, that in itself makes me realise how little we know about what goes on our planet. But I think for me, the very fact that I was exposed to it at the very beginning by a gentleman who's actually an author himself now, who had experiences, Ellis Taylor, I always blame him for taking me down this rabbit hole, because it was his story that got me on this track. There's many profound stories I could talk about that have shown me aspects of this, but I think the most powerful is hearing the children. And the reason I'm impressed with the children is because a lot of these children are under 10 years old, 5 years old, that talk about going on spacecraft, talk about what they learn on spacecraft. And I know they don't watch talk shows, they don't read books on this. So this is very much a part of an experience that has a clarity to it, their story. And so I suppose for me, it's the children's stories more than anything that really affects me, because I think I've always got a soft spot for the little ones. I've got 4 grandchildren, and that really touches me, the children particularly.
Yeah. And now you mention your own grandchildren. Have you ever heard them tell you something significant, or something you thought about?
Interesting question. There has been a few little interesting things that have happened where they've talked about lights in the room and this kind of thing. The other thing that I found very interesting was one of my grandchildren actually recognising one of the Indian gods at 2.5, and actually telling his mother the name of the god. And she said, "How did you know?" And he said to her, "Because I'm a clever boy." And he was only about 2 when he came out with this. What I'm finding is that there are children all over the globe that are now coming out with profound information and understanding that they've got no access to in the normal way. So my grandchildren are very much like so many out there now that are aware and more awake, and I believe they're here to help us understand more of what's going on.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for the parents of these children, if someone watching now recognizes something
that's different about them? Yes. I'm actually writing my second book is about the children and about the teenagers and what they say. And the parents often say, "What do I do when they come out with this information?" And my main thing to say to them is just listen, and don't dismiss it, and don't tell them that they're making things up or whatever. Just listen to what they have to say, because most children just want to share and know that they're not going to be told to be quiet or told that it's rubbish or whatever. And I think that's the most important thing of all. Just listen and hear them, and if they want to explain how it is for them, then just be open to whatever that is, no matter how much it might challenge the way you understand your world.
Yeah. It seems to be a lot about this paradigm shift also with the adults, that we need to get to learn something through the children.
I believe they've come to teach us, and this is what I've been told. A 9-year-old told me, she said, "Mary, I've come to wake my family up, but we come here to help, and we've come to help humanity wake up." And when I talked to an 8-year-old boy that told me he could communicate with animals, and I said, "So what do you feel you've come here to do?" And he said, I'm come here to help humans understand about animals and how we must take care of them and look after them. And that's very, very important. So they come with some really important messages about how we treat each other, how we treat the animals of the planet, how we treat everything on our planet, how connected everything is. And you'll see things on YouTube where these children already are talking about how important it is to love one another. And they're 4, 5, 6 years old, amazingly aware children, talking with such wisdom. And I just think, how can you not see these are really special souls? Because it's not, I've got grandchildren that don't come out with some of that kind of maturity. And I think they're telling us, from what they're saying, that this is where we're going.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think that it has become more socially accepted to be an abductee now?
Than it was a few years ago? Yeah. I have seen an exponential increase in people who at least are admitting that they've had experiences, and they'll often use the word awakening, which is really interesting. And these will be people you wouldn't expect to hear that word from, and it may be a lawyer, or it might be a policeman, or it might be a pilot, or it might be a politician, or someone in the media, and they will say, 2 years ago, I had this amazing shift in my awareness and awakening. I'm no longer interested in the way I used to live prior to this. And they often seek more holistic lifestyles, simple lifestyles, self-sufficiency, losing interest in materialistic values, and many of them go into healing, or they go into ways for caring for the planet. And this is a total shift in the way they saw life before. And this seems to be happening right across the globe. So for me, absolutely, there is a new awareness and a new acceptance that we're more than we were told that we are, and that it's not just a materialistic world, that we are actually living in a world that is multidimensional in its nature.
Yeah. In your view, in your worldview, do you have this sense of urgency that we're running out of time, that we have to get to a certain level, or else things will go the wrong way or the right way? Some people are talking about this in the community, so I would like to hear your view on that.
You're absolutely right, and there is this sense of urgency, even with the children that are aware that something's going to occur, and they have lots of different names for a shift in consciousness, maybe something happening to the planet, all sorts of different ideas on what that might be. But there is definitely a sense of, we've got to get it right. There's something, it's really urgent, and almost an anxiety around, am I doing everything that I can do now? And this is adults as well as children that are telling me about those things. And even some of them have even given dates. One young 9-year-old told me the significant time for this process is 2012 to 2017. But many are saying it seems to be imminent. So whatever it is everybody's feeling, I think it's certainly worth taking notice of.
And I'm always wondering if it's a good thing or a bad thing that we have this urgency, or does it provoke more fear in people, or is it our wake-up call? Is it it's difficult to formulate.
Yes, and in a way, yes, it can endanger an anxiety, but it's also more about, we get things done more when we feel there's some motivation. Otherwise, we're inclined to sit and smell the roses a little bit too much and not do very much about things, next year or the year after. And I think what this is doing is actually getting people to start to look at things now, rather than say, well, I'll wait and get it, it'll get fixed in a few years' time or whatever. So in a way, I think, we have to have a little bit of that to actually do something about it. And I feel anything that's going to happen, it's up to us. We can't wait for ourselves to be rescued somehow. I think we've come onto this planet to do something, and let's do it. Whatever it is we feel motivated to do, let's get on with it and let's do it, rather than expect for somebody else to come along and somebody else's task. I don't think that's the way it's meant to be.
Yeah. So do you have any specific advice for people if they have fear towards this shift, or how they can maybe transmute the fear into something constructive?
Positive. I think it is about saying, I think, and this is my own personal belief, that we come in as souls with a job to do, and I don't think that we are allowed not to do that job. I think if our soul has a mandate, it's brought us in with the tools to deal with that mandate, and it's not going to let us miss the bus, because that would be a waste of time. So I can't see, that it would bring us here and go through all the experiences that we do, and at the end of it, sorry, you didn't get it quite right. Tough. You're going to have to try another 15 lifetimes. I'm not so sure it's like that. I think when we have things to do, we're guided by that inner part of us to do what we need to do, and it's just about listening to it. So I don't think in the end that you need to worry. I think it's more about trusting, because I think in the end it's about letting go, rather than going, I've got to do this. It's actually about letting go and trusting that you're guided into doing what you need to do. And I find things just unfold then when you just let go and feel you don't have to control it anymore. So I would say just let go and trust that inner guidance, because there'll be part of you that knows what to do. And I think we all have that feeling.
Yeah, very good advice. Just to go back to the work you do with people to help them, do you have examples of what kind of problems people get in their lives because of these experiences?
Yes, well, I think the hardest, and what I've seen since I've come to Denmark again has made it very clear to me, for some of those that come to see me, is how hard it is to own that this is your experience, because of the judgment, because of the way that society operates. It's not okay to be different. It's not okay to step out of the box. And so in the end, you become scared of your own awareness, scared to trust it, scared to be all that you can be, simply because of those in society. And it's not their fault either, because they've been told it's not okay to do this or to feel this or sense this or know this. You've got to play the game, you've got to work within the rules. And that is what I've seen, and I'm seeing very much in Western society, is this fear to be different and actually own who you are. And I felt that one of my mandates is to say, look, say you can see the elephant, because it may not actually be as scary as you think, and there may be others around you that see the elephant too. Because do you want to spend your life in fear, or do you actually want to be yourself, no matter what other people think? The great thing about getting older is you care less and less what people think. It's actually brilliant. They can blame it on your hormones, or they can blame it on the fact that you're getting on a bit. And it just frees you up from really worrying about other people and what they think of you. And I would say to them, don't wait till you're 50 or 60 to do that. If you can, be more of yourself. And that way, you have that freedom then, and you will find that there's a blessing in that if you can. Because I feel so sad for people when they're hiding themselves all their lives, and they're so afraid of being themselves. And this is a time to be yourself, I think. So what a CERN is, and what the new organisation I'm involved with is actually giving people permission to say, this is my experience. And the other organisation, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, is really saying, This now we're looking at in a way that the left brain can understand what the right brain's doing. And, we have physicists, we have those in the therapeutic arena, we have people working in academia in terms of psychology that are saying, we're looking at this now and we're going to show you why you can take it seriously. Because up to now, there is not a psychological model that says this is okay. So we're going to create a new one. And this is how we're going to do it. And you can't dismiss it, because there's psychology professors, there's physicists, there's therapists. They're all coming from the same place that's saying, you know what, this is credible, this is real, and this is part of our reality, and this is how you can understand it. This is what has to happen now.
Yeah. And was that the reason why you started these two organizations? Or?
Yes, because as a CERN, I didn't have the ability with my small organisation in Australia to provide that kind of backup. The scientists, the MDs, the psychologists and the academics. What we've managed to do is create a core of what people see as professional, credible individuals, very hard to dismiss when they've got PhDs in psychology, or they're physicists, that are saying in the quantum hologram, this can be real. When we're looking at hundreds of people that are saying the same thing about their experiences, and there's doctors, lawyers, nurses, pilots, politicians are saying this is my experience, and you've got PhDs, and you've got those with strings of letters after their name, and they're all saying, you know what, this is my experience. It gets harder and harder to say, well, that's just some person having a fantasy. And this is what we're doing now. We're creating a bridge between the old and the new, so that we can say, can we create a model that actually fits human experience and not just part of it? And that has needed to happen in ufology particularly, and particularly when you work in the therapeutic side of someone with encounters.
Yeah. But what do you believe is going on? Do you have some kind of picture of what is going on? Or are you confused about it, or how do you feel about that?
Oh, I think I will be joining the dots till I leave this planet. But what I will say is I've seen patterns, and one of the patterns is that this experience appears to be ultimately transformative. And that to me is evidence of an experience. You don't transform after a fantasy or a hallucination. And the mere fact that people change in dramatic ways from the way that they look at life, their philosophy, their spirituality, the way that they want to live in a more holistic way, to me is an amazing transformation. That, interested in healing, they may never have even known about that, or even known what energy was prior to this. All these things are showing me that something profound has happened in their life. Why do they suddenly start doing strange scripts, or doing amazing artwork, or they start coming out with strange languages? All of this is evidence of a reality, but it also shows that somehow or other we change and evolve into being more aware of the dimensions and our multidimensional nature. That doesn't happen out of a hallucination. It doesn't happen in a fantasy. And it transforms them into wanting to be a better person on this planet, a more connected one that wants to help the planet and wants to help one another. That to me is the ultimate in terms of shift and change, that I think however you interpret that, that is to me the most important part of what I'm seeing. And I think that's got to be better for the planet ultimately.
Yes. Do you think there is an alien agenda, or are there many agendas, or how do you view that part of it?
I think there's multiple agendas, because there's multiple intelligences, I think, that are visiting this planet, and they all have their own mandate. So in terms of agenda, there'll be some, I believe, that are more self-serving, and there'll be those that really do want to help us evolve as a species on every level. And so that's what makes it confusing, because which species are working, doing what, and what is the ultimate aim. All I can say is that I believe that we're connected to many of those that are visiting us, so they have different agendas from their perspective. We may not understand some of it, we may never understand it maybe, but ultimately I think that if we are to change as a species, they certainly seem to have a very important role in helping us change. And let's face it, at the moment we're not doing a terribly good job, because most humans, it seems to me, want to settle their problems by shooting one another, or generally wanting to wipe them out. I don't think that's very evolved. So maybe with help from those with a higher awareness, we may actually realise that we're actually all connected and that we should be helping one another. And, so everybody lives in a beautiful way where we share resources, where we look after one another and realise that we're all on the same side, we're all humans, and we really need to look after each other.
Yes. I was wondering, do you have any opinion about people in the UFO community or channelers who are talking about a great deception coming? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I gather that Werner von Braun always said that ultimately that would be the final way to keep us in fear and to deceive humanity, was to talk about an alien invasion that would be orchestrated by what I would call the darker projects or the covert governments that really run the show, as most of us who've got any internet will soon work out very quickly. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to work that one out, do you? I think that is quite possible. But what I've found with those that have had experiences that are really tuned in, particularly the children, they seem to have an ability to see beyond, to see the truth, to see the reality, which thankfully they can. And I don't think, again, we'd come to this planet without the skills and the tools to work out what we need to know. So I think we've brought in a lot of these new kids that are going to help us understand where the truth is and where the truth isn't. And if we listen to them and our own resonance, maybe we will work it out without too much bother. I'm sure we will.
Yes. Do you have any, if I may just say, in relation to what you just said, that you are optimistic? It sounds like you're optimistic about the future. Yes. But what gives you that kind of knowing or certainty? Okay.
And you're going to laugh now, and because it's one I'm probably going to be on my gravestone if I have one. That is, there are two things that help me to be optimistic, apart from the fact that I like to be optimistic anyway, is that I don't believe all these amazing children that are being born and have been born over the last few generations with their awareness, I don't believe they'd be born with all that ability and all that awareness for a waste of time, because I can't see there would be any purpose to that. And secondly, I can imagine myself as a soul being told, Mary, you're going to go to that planet Earth and you're going to work hard for a long time and you're going to try and help all you can, but sorry, it isn't going to work out at the end. Do you know what I would be saying? Go and find some other mug to go and do it, because I ain't going to that planet working my butt off for a waste of time. So that one you can dismiss if you like, because I just know me. But I don't think seriously that the children and all these aware people that have been born on this planet have come and it's not going to work out, because I don't see any purpose to that. Because if they're aware enough, they would just say, like me, not going to that planet isn't going to work. You can make of that what you will, but that's how I've interpreted my optimism, because I honestly feel that I just wouldn't bother to come here. I'd say, I'll go to another planet, please. But I've got no way to be honest, to say why I'm optimistic, just that I feel it.
Well, that's also a good reason, I think. Yes. Do you think it's realistic to have official disclosure for everybody at the same time?
I think it would be wonderful if it happened, but I doubt it's going to happen. I think we're being drip-fed. I think they've got too much to lose. So I think that ultimately the only way disclosure is going to happen, and I call it disclosure from the ground up. I think when enough people feel brave enough and courageous enough to come out and say, this is my experience, I think that is how this shift is going to occur. And I think that's what's expected of us. I think, it's time for us to stand up and say, this is my truth. And how can you live a lie? How can you continue not to be yourself? And if I could say anything, is that I think there's a lot of courageous people ready to start doing that. And I've been meeting them recently who are going to say, this is my truth. I've got all the credentials you want. I also see beings. So do what you will with that. And if enough people say it, in the end, I believe like the 100th monkey, 10% of the planet get it. I think we all get it. And I think this is where we're reaching now, that cut-off point where I think it will just be known as a reality. At least that's what I feel.
Well, I just would like to say thank you very much, Mary, for coming here to Scandinavia, to Exopolitics Denmark. And we are very happy to have you here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and it's been an absolute pleasure too. Everyone has been welcoming and beautiful, and I just thank you for inviting me to come to your beautiful country. Thank you.